and welcome to the Christopher Iannella Chamber for our weekly City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of a quorum?
Councilor Campbell, Councilor Siomo, Councilor Asabi George, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Jackson, Councilor Lina, Councilor Linehan, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Presley, Councilor Wu, and Councilor Zakem. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask all councilors and guests to please rise, and I will invite Councilor Jackson up to introduce our faith leader for the day. After the invocation is delivered, please remain standing, and Councilor Jackson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Jackson?
Thank you, Madam President. It is with great honor that I bring before you a very good friend of many people in the room, someone who advocates for a better city on a day-to-day basis and a safer city and accountability for all. My friend, Pastor Bruce Wall, senior pastor of Global Ministries Christian Church in Boston. He's a Roxbury native, and that makes me love him even more. Pastor Wall is a graduate of Brighton High School, and he also is the co-pastor for Global Ministries Christian Church, which he has been there since 1993 and has been senior pastor since 1999, a position he still holds. Pastor Wall was a youth minister at 12th Baptist Church for 14 years under Pastor Michael Haynes. For 25 years, Pastor Wall has served with distinction as the first assistant clerk magistrate of the Boston Juvenile Court. And he is founder of Boston Praise Radio and TV networks, and also is able to be heard, and this is the shameless plug, on WBPG LP 102.9 radio. I want to bring forward a great Bostonian and someone who truly cares about the city of Boston, Pastor Bruce Wall. Thank you.
Shall we pray? Father, I thank you for this opportunity to come before the Boston City Council to pray for the council members, their staff, and the city. We thank you for each city councilor and the committees that they chair. Allow them the wisdom and strength to carry out their responsibilities on behalf of their constituency. Our nation and city needs you to love and guide us. Teach us how to trust you with all of our hearts and to lean not to our own understanding, and in all our ways to submit to you, and you would direct our path. God, this morning our mayor needs you. This morning, God, protect our police officers and keep them safe on our city streets. Protect our children and their families from the violence that has impacted so many people's lives. And God, for the work that will be conducted in today's city council meeting, we pray for our councilors as they speak and conduct their business on behalf of all of us. And we pray this in your name, and we all say, amen.
Thank you so much, Councilor Jackson and Pastor Wall. Before we move on to our formal business, I wanted to invite up Councilor Asabi George for a special presentation.
Thank you, Council President Wu. I'd also like to invite Councilor Sala Matina as well. Today it gives me great honor and great pride to introduce to you the city champions girls volleyball for the City of Boston, East Boston High School. While the team is making their way down, I would like to just share a few thoughts about how excited I am to honor them here today. Come on, all the way up. And recognize their achievement. As all of you know, I was a very proud teacher at East Boston High for 13 years. And one of the greatest parts of my career was my experience coaching the girls softball team at East Boston High, and really an incredible opportunity to connect with the kids, connect with all of my students, not just my players, and to also connect with my colleagues. And as exhausting and as frustrating as team sports can be, and as competitive as it can be, the effort that the coaches put in to the season and to this group of girls in particular behind me is something that we can never offer enough thanks for. So I present to you the city champs. They had an 18-0 season this past year. Made it, made it incredibly deep into the state tournament and really had quite the run. And if you had an opportunity to watch their season unfold online on Facebook in particular, it was a proud moment for me during the season to watch them to win tournament after tournament after tournament. And I would like to congratulate the coaches, Vanessa and Carmen, who I love so dearly and have spent so much of my life with them. And of course, the headmaster, Phil Brangiaforti, who's with us today. I'm wearing my blue and gold today because we're raising the Barbados flag, but also because this girl from Dorchester's got some Eastie blood in her somewhere. But I also want to commend the 4 seniors who are graduating this year and looking forward to attending some incredible schools, possibly Curry for nursing, Boston University for psychology, UMass Lowell for psychology, and the 4th was, what did I miss? Newberry College. And the Newberry College girl is being recruited for volleyball. So we're doing great things in the city. I'd like to offer, I know I took over because it's East Boston High, but a graduate of East Boston High, our great colleague, Counselor Lamatina, for a few words, and then we're going to hear from Nicole, who's a senior graduating off the team.
Thank you, Anissa. It's great to be here with East Boston High School, class of 1978.
I didn't want to say it.
I'll say it. Also, I just want to congratulate East Boston High School volleyball girls team. You did a great job. I had the opportunity to spend some time with them today. We're very excited at East Boston High School because we beat South Boston High again at our football game by a huge score. But I'm very proud of the girls at East Boston High School. Thank you. You make us proud. Anissa and myself, we're proud to be part of East Boston High School. And you have a great headmaster, Phil Brangiaforti, who bleeds blue and gold every single day. The high school, I was a principal for the day last week. It's a great school. I'm very proud to be an alumni from East Boston High School. So congratulations. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Nicole Oliveira, and I am a captain of the East Boston volleyball team. First, I'd like to thank everyone for inviting my team here today. It is truly an honor. This year was the first year in all of East Boston's history that the volleyball team took the city championship. We worked hard on and off the court, and I'm glad to say that it all paid off in the end. We set goals at the beginning of the year, which included being undefeated to have a record of 18-0, being the city champions, and making our city proud. With each and every day, we gave our all to make sure that we achieved our goals, and I'm glad to say that we finally did. What started off as just a team ended as a family. We have a bond that can't be broken, and I'm glad to say that through all that we've accomplished, I've had my sisters by my side. Thank you for a wonderful 4 years, and thank you again for welcoming us to City Hall today.
Sal and I are going to present each of the girls with a certificate, just recognizing their accomplishment and celebrating their victories and their academic successes, not just in this school year, but all the years ahead. Would everyone come on up and we'll take a nice group photo.
Thank you. Very loose.
Good job, lady.
Thank you, Councilors Asabi George and Lamatina, and to all of the inspirations for youth across the city. So proceeding with formal business, we'll start with approval of the minutes from last council meeting. Are there any additions, amendments, or changes? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes from last meeting stand approved, and we'll move on to communications from His Honor the Mayor. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1510, message and ordinance amending CBC ordinances, Section 8-9, establishing the Boston residence job policy, will now contain the sections of the code containing to the Boston Employment Commission, and as such, this ordinance revokes Section 12-10 of the code, establishing the Boston Employment Commission, filed in the office of the city clerk on November 28, 2016.
I do want to pause here and just ask if anybody wanted to speak on the mayor's ordinance, or we will obviously have much opportunity as it goes through the public hearing process, but I know there are some folks in the room. Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I am actually very happy about the proposed amendment to this ordinance, the Boston Jobs for Boston People ordinance. My father, Herb Jackson, worked very hard on this. Councilor Turner, who was present, worked very hard on this. The Boston Jobs Coalition and the Boston Economic Justice Institute have worked very hard on this very important matter. The only thing I would say is it doesn't matter if we modify something that we don't enforce. When it comes to the laws that are on the books in the city of Boston, they should be enforced. And right now in the city of Boston, there are job sites such as the former Roxbury Comprehensive Community Health Center, which is now being built right on Warren Street in Roxbury, that has 6% Boston residents that are working on that job site. Right now in the city of Boston at Boston Medical Center, where they're spending over $100 million to do modifications to their building, that job site that's wrapping up had, instead of 50%, had 24% Boston residents. So if we are going to put forward modifications to laws that we are not going to actually enforce, then the numbers are all for naught and don't matter. So I think it's important, and I am supportive of the increase here. I think we have a mayor who knows this space better than any one of us or anyone that we've had in the past. But I call on the administration to not wait to enforce the laws that are currently on the books, to not wait to require the BPDA to enforce the laws that are currently on the books in the city of Boston. We have a downtown that is on fire when it comes to the amount of building that is happening in the city of Boston. But we have Roxbury that has 17% unemployment, where young people and not so young people are looking for jobs on a day-to-day basis, and people are coming from New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, Connecticut to get jobs and to take that money back to where they're from. So if we're going to put forward modifications to laws, the first thing that we should do, the most important thing that we should do, is to enforce the laws that are currently on the books today to ensure that Boston residents, women, and people of color have an opportunity to have gainful employment in their own city and to get good jobs that can transform their lives and that can take the over 50% of people in the city of Boston who make $35,000 a year up the ladder and make sure this is a city for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I just like to remind our guests and audience members today, if we could please refrain from applause. We so appreciate that you're here and we appreciate that you're engaged with us. But per our council rules, because the room acoustically can be hard to hear, we just request that if you can express your approval silently, that would be wonderful. And Councillor Jackson mentioned it, but I neglected to recognize before a former colleague, Councillor Chuck Turner, who is in the room, and we are always honored to have our former colleagues with us, so thank you so much for being here. Councillor Presley, you have the floor. Oh.
Actually,
Well, no, feel free to sit.
everyone, I'm sorry I have laryngitis. I'm not gonna talk. I'll put a statement out. I just wanted to say thanks to Bruce Bowling. To Bruce Bowling, the blueprint for all of this, and to the advocates and the coalition for their vigilance. I'll say more later.
Councillor Presley said thanks to Bruce Bowling and the advocates in the coalition who laid the foundation for all of this, and clearly, as you can see, she has laryngitis. Thank you so much, Councillor Presley. Docket number 1510 will be assigned to the Committee on Government Operations.
Docket number 1511, message disapproving an order adopting the provisions of Section 17C of Chapter 90 of the Massachusetts General Laws regarding the authority to establish speed limits for vehicular traffic. Docket number 1448.
Docket number 1511 will be placed on file.
Docket number 1512, message and order adopting the provisions of 17C of Chapter 90 of the Massachusetts General Laws regarding the authority to establish speed limits for vehicular traffic.
Chair recognizes Councillor Frank Baker.
Thank you, Madam President. This clarifies what we did last week, where we talked about this. I wanted to suspend and pass. This is just allows us to adopt what the state has done. There was some discrepancies last week. I think my good colleague will get up and speak to those, but I would like to suspend and pass this.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Zachem, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, Councillor Baker. Last week I did have some concerns and proposed amendments to the mayor's order accepting a lower default speed limit in the city of Boston, because I want to ensure that our city could lower speed limits to 20 miles per hour where necessary in safety zones, which is why we asked for that amendment last week. Much to my surprise, and I think to many of our surprise, and certainly to many of my constituents' surprise, the city of Boston has had the authority to lower speeds to 20 miles per hour for 20 plus years under a prior home rule petition. As the mayor explains in his letter, disproving the order from last week, and as I believe there's a memorandum that the council president has distributed on our desks. So on that note, I certainly have no objection to lowering the default speed limit while maintaining the city's ability to, where necessary, in areas where safety calls for it, to lower it to 20 miles an hour per the transportation commissioner. I do just want to, take this time to express my dismay that we have not been using that power. I think more proactively over the past at least 3 years that we've been here, when this body has routinely passed home rule petitions seeking the authority that apparently we already possessed. So With that, I would not object, and I look forward to voting in the affirmative and supporting Councilor Baker's suspension and passage of the new order.
Thank you, Councillor Zakem. So just to summarize, as Councillor Zakem mentioned, there is a memo that Councillor Zakem and I had requested from Corporation Counsel just to put in writing what the interpretation was. The key issue is that even though the language of the amendment, which we adopted last week or 2 weeks ago, seemed to suggest that it would give the city additional authority, in fact, MassDOT is interpreting that legislation to require additional state approval and engineering studies, even though it doesn't seem to require it. And so the city wants to rely on former authority that we had, but it's all laid out in this in case you're curious. Does anyone else, would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Okay, at this time, Councillor Baker moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1512. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1512 has been passed.
Docket number 1513, message and order authorizing the Commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the amount not to exceed $400,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, Division of Conservation Services, Parkland Acquisitions and Renovations for Communities, known as the PARK program. The grant will be used to renovate Harabee Park, Phase 1, located in Dorchester neighborhood of Boston.
Councillor LaMattina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to ask for if we could suspend and pass doc number 1513. The Parks Department is applying for this grant of $400,000 for Harabee Park for Phase 1. The Parks Department is looking to do a major renovation at that park, and we'd like to they need to get the application in soon this month. So please, if we could suspend and pass.
Thank you, Councillor LaMattina. This time, the councillor moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1513. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1513 has been passed.
Docket number 1514, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $200,000 in the form of a grant from the Communication Staff Grant awarded by the Boston Foundation to be administered by the Office of Arts and Culture. The grant will provide funding for an additional staff person who will be responsible for all strategic communications.
So on behalf of the Arts and Culture Committee, this will be the first of 3 dockets that I'm going to ask for suspension and passage of in order to enable the department and Chief Burrows to continue the great work they've been doing. So on docket 1514, Chair moves for suspension of the rules and passage. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1514 has been passed.
Docket number 1515, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $119,207 in the form of a grant for the Fair Housing Program awarded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to be administered by Fair Housing and Equity. The grant will fund the FY16 Fair Housing investigation and enforcement work to help process housing discrimination complaints received by the Boston Fair Housing Commission.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Housing and Community Development, Councillor Zakem.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I rise to ask for suspension and passage of docket 1515 to allow this grant money to be put swiftly to use in investigating and enforcing the fair housing regulations and laws in the City of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zakem. Councillor moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1515. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1515 has been passed.
Docket number 1516, message and order authorizing the Office of Arts and Culture to accept and expend a grant of $100,000 from the Boston Redevelopment Authority to fund the Boston Artist Resource Manager position.
Again, Chair moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1516. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1516 has been passed.
Docket number 1517, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a grant of $69,990.14 in the form of a grant, EOPSS Year 2, Youth Engagement, awarded by the U.S. Department of Justice, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, to be administered by the Boston Police Department. The grant will support collaboration with Teen Empowerment and the NAFI/YPI on specific facilitated youth police dialogues, including an emphasis on engaging Somali youth.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise today to request suspension and passage of docket number 1517. As the clerk read, this is a grant given to the Boston Police Department to continue its dialogue with the Somali youth community of Boston.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor McCarthy moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1517. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1517 has been passed.
Docket number 1518, message and order authorizing the Environment Department to accept and expend a grant of $6,650 from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's Sustainable Materials Recovery Program for the purpose of waste reduction programming in the city of Boston.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Environment and Sustainability, Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to suspend and pass docket number 1518. I typically don't do this, but given the fact that the grant is under $7,000 and will allow our DPW, working in concert with our Environment Department, to address waste reduction programming, of which I may have an idea or two later in this meeting to discuss. I think this is a grant that we should pass and suspend rules and pass today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1518. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1518 has been passed.
Docket number 1519, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $5,000 in a form of a grant, Emerging Artist Award, awarded by the Boston Foundation to be administered by the Arts and Culture Commission. The grant would fund the Emerging Artist Awards.
And again, Chair moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1519. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1519 has been passed. Before we move on to the next section, Madam Clerk, I just want to just clarify one thing for our audience members. We welcome you, we appreciate you, but just to be perfectly clear, we had gotten some calls in my office beforehand anticipating that just cause eviction would be on this week's agenda, and it is not. So I don't want you to be expecting it to come up later and not hear it come up. It has not been filed yet in the council, so you are welcome to say we appreciate you, but I just wanted, seeing your signs and knowing that that's what you're interested in, wanted to make sure everybody knew that. But thank you for coming. So on to reports of public officers and others, Madam Clerk.
Would you like me to read docket number 1520 to 1525?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Docket number 1520, communication was received from the city clerk of the filing by the Boston Redevelopment Authority of the agreement on the application on the Orion Heights Redevelopment Phase 1 Limited Partnership, Chapter 121A project. Docket number 1521, communication was received from the city clerk on the University Accountability Reports 2016-2017 statistics. Docket number 1522, notice was received from the city clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the ordinances of 1979 regarding actions taken by the mayor on papers acted upon on the council meeting of September 21st, 2016. Docket number 1523, notice is received from the city clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the ordinances of 1979 regarding action taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the city council at its meeting of October 19th, 2016. Docket number 1524, notice is received from the city clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the ordinances of 1979 regarding action taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the city council at its meeting of November 2nd, 2016. And docket number 1525, notice is received from the city clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the ordinances of 1979 regarding action taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the city council at its meeting of November 16th, 2016.
Dockets number 1520 through 1525 will be placed on file.
Docket number 1526, communication was received from Councilors O'Malley and Wu regarding the completion of the Plastic Bag Ordinance Task Force and its findings.
Docket number 1526 will be placed on file.
Docket number 1527, communication was received from the Goodwin Proctor LLP of the notice of easement and air right plan pursuant to the report and decision on the application for approval of Boston Garden Development Corp. And Boston Properties Limited Partnership to undertake the project in Boston, Massachusetts, under Mass General Laws 121A, as amended, and state Law 1960, Chapter 652, as amended, the report and decision. Capitalized terms not defined therein shall have the definition attributed to them in the report and decision.
Docket 1527 will be placed on file. Reports of committees, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0164, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on January 27th, docket 2016, docket number 0164. Message and order authorizing the issuance of tax-exempt refunding bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $75 million in order to pay the principal redemption premium, if any, and interest on bonds and other obligations to be refunded, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee held its hearing on November 17th. We had testimony from Vivian Leo, our Assistant Collector Treasurer, as well as Richard DiPiano, the Second Assistant Collector Treasurer. In order to take advantage of favorable market conditions, this will enable our city to refund debt, almost like remortgaging, giving us the ability to fund more capital projects at a lesser cost and saving taxpayer money for other important services for our constituents. So I recommend that this order pass.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Councilor Siomo moves for acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0164. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 0164 has been passed. Matters recently heard for possible action.
Docket number 1419, message and order approving appropriation of $856,257 from the Edward Ingersoll Brown Fund for projects that will ornament the city's streets, ways, squares, and parks.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Transportation, Councilor LaMattina.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to ask that we pass docket number 1419. Yesterday, we did have a hearing at the council with Vivian Leo, First Assistant Collector Treasurer, and Richard DiPiano, who is the Second Assistant Collector Treasurer, in regards to the Edward Brown Fund. As you know, the Brown Fund was established in 1892. There's a balance of $13.7 million in that fund. And what they do is we use the interest to fund some of these projects throughout the city. The $257,000 will be spent on some of the examples of restorations of Dorothy Park Fountain in Charlestown, a welcome gateway at the Matter School in Dorchester, landscape and enhancement at the Flower Clock Esteem Farm in Mattapan, at the Joseph Manning Elementary School. They're going to do an outdoor teaching room, bike racks along Washington Street in Roxbury, landscape and improvements at the Puerto Rican Veterans Square, memorial site in the South End, and at the public arts at the Frederick Douglass Peace Garden in Roxbury, and some design development at the Old North Church in the North End. So some good projects, and ask that you pass.
Thank you, Councilor LaMattina. Councilor Linehan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to support the chairman's recommendation for approval as the trustee for the Ingersoll Brown Fund that represents the Boston City Council. We sat with the
with the mayor and David Sweeney and went over many of these applications. There are a number of applications that we looked at are many. There's still additional money that will come up each year for this for these appropriations, and the representation is dispersed throughout the city on where the money is being spent. So it was an honor to represent the Boston City Council as the trustee, and as Councilor LaMartinez just reminded me, as the dean and senior member of this body. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just like to add, I was in attendance of the hearing, and an important note that most folks don't realize is that you have to apply to the Brown Fund. So it's not like the Brown Fund just sits in a room and they decide which projects to pick. Friends of parks and ball fields and monuments, and it's up to them. So for those that are here and those that are viewing, should know that if there's a park or a playground or a ball field that needs some repair or needs a backstop or a fountain fixed or repaired, it's up to them to put a group together and submit an application. And those applications will be fairly vetted, and they'll be the beneficiaries. As Councilor LaMartina indicated, there's over $13 million in the fund, but it kicks off somewhere between, say, $600,000 and $700,000 a year. And in this instance here, they didn't use all of their amount last year, so they're able to give more this year. So just a message for those that are out there that have a need or a desire to see something in their community fixed up or repaired or replaced. Now's the time. They'll be accepting applications right after the first of the year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor LaMartina moves for acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1419. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1419 has been passed. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
Docket number 1528, Council Siomo offer the following order that pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 56, the residential factor in the City of Boston for FY 2017 shall be the minimum residential factor as determined by the Commissioner of Revenue pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 58, Section 1A. And be it further that pursuant to Chapter 403 of the Acts of 2000, a residential exemption in the amount value equal to 30% of the average assessed value of all Class 1 residential parcels in the City of Boston, and thereby is approved for fiscal year 2017.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Ways and Means Committee, Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an annual exercise this body has to undertake so that the Department of Revenue can certify our ability to exact the highest residential factor of 30%, which results in a $1,900 saving to every residential homeowner in the City of Boston. So this is an important piece of legislation that we have to do each year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Docket number 1528 will be assigned to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Docket number 1529, Councilors O'Malley and Wu offer the following ordinance regarding the reduction of plastic bags in Boston.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair recognizes the lead sponsor, Councilor O'Malley.
More than ever, it is incumbent upon local cities, municipalities, towns to take the lead on initiatives that seek to protect our environment. Today, Council President Wu and I are offering an ordinance that promotes environmental protection while supporting small businesses and encouraging relief for consumers. Today, we're offering our plastic bag ordinance. This ordinance marks the result of the Plastic Bag Task Force, which Council President Wu asked me to lead back in August, and was a 90-day working group which held 3 incredibly well-attended public meetings. Many of you were there and your staffs were there. We then created a web portal to solicit feedback from residents from all over Boston. 723 Boston residents and business owners weighed in. We had a very ecumenical approach, as I like to do. We made sure that folks from the paper bag industry, from the plastic bag industry, some of whom have lobbyists who are sitting with us today, and we welcome them, had a seat at the table. The other thing that I use this opportunity to really take advantage of is to figure out what has worked in other cities throughout the country. Our friend and our former colleague, but a friend to all of us, Rob Consalvo, introduced a plastic bag ordinance back in 2007, 9 years ago. It did not advance, but this is something that other cities and towns, indeed countries, have been talking about for more than a decade. Surrounding towns to Boston have implemented some sort of a ban, and rather than dwell on the fact that we're late to the party, as it were, I instead, as the optimist, use this as an opportunity to figure out what worked, what challenges were there, what advice we could glean from other cities and towns. Had tremendous conversations and meetings over the phone with Mike O'Brien, who's a counselor for District 6, actually, in Seattle, Washington, as well as Tommy Wells, a former city council member from Washington, D.C., who implemented something. They both provided some incredible advice. I worked with some incredible advocates throughout this state, throughout this city, and throughout this state. The Girl Scouts of Dorchester have been particularly animated and a great voice in this endeavor. I really appreciate the leadership and the partnership with Michelle Wu. I'm incredibly grateful to Jessica Morris from my staff, who's played an integral role in this, as well as Liz Sullivan, my chief of staff, and Henry Cohen from the council president's office, who've been doing some yeoman's work. At the end of the day, I believe we are putting forth the best plastic bag ordinance in the country. We've seen what's worked elsewhere, and we've emulated that. We've seen what hasn't worked elsewhere, and we've avoided that. This ordinance will call for a ban on single-use plastic bags and a 5-cent fee on paper bags, reusable plastic bags that are thicker than 3 millimeters. So as a point of reference, think of your typical bookstore bag for that thickness and heft and ability to reuse, as well as compostable plastic bags. And this is something that Councilor Presley and I have been working to try to bring curbside composting to Boston. I don't need to tell you, but since I've been doing this, I've been even more keenly aware, and I'd urge you all to, as you're walking around your neighborhood, as you're doing office hours, as you're out and about, as I know each and every one of you are day, just take a look and really focus on the plastic bag that you see in the storm drain, or caught in the branch, or the fact that it is everywhere after trash day. At our last working group session, a representative from Casella, who does our recycling, mentioned that there are 20 tons per month of plastic bags, those flimsy, cheap bags. So think of 20 tons of that just in 1 month from the residential single-stream recycling of Boston residents. Not business, not commercial, residential only. What does that mean? That means that hours upon hours are spent every day from our taxpayers as we're trying to utilize single-stream recycling to free up the equipment for those plastic bags that get stuck in there. So I would argue that by proactively taking approach to this, we're actually doing some great service to our taxpayer, because we'll be able to offer more efficient recycling and single stream, not the least of which is the pollution that we see every day on the streets. You will see that you'll hear from a lot of opponents you have already, particularly the lobbyists and the paper bag and the plastic bag industries have very deep pockets. They would argue that it doesn't make sense to change the status quo. You're going to hear from constituents who disagree with this initiative, and that's a perfectly reasonable point of view to have. But I would counter that this is something that is not only good for the environment, but there has been study after study that has shown that is the case. Seattle in 2012 saw a 50% reduction of plastic bags in residential garbage. So similar to what we do with the single stream, we're looking at 20 tons per month. Almost immediately, they went down to half of that. Washington, D.C. saw businesses give out 50% less plastic bags, which saves them money, and bag usage went down by 85% within months of implementation. Ireland, a country that many of us can trace our ancestry to, put a plastic bag ban in 2002. They have seen a 94% reduction in plastic bags in the last 14 years. 94%. It is remarkable. We have an opportunity to pass something that is very impactful. The other mechanism that's in place, some people will ask, well, why even charge the fee? Well, 5 cents, I think, is a reasonable amount because it encourages an individual to bring a reusable bag, but is not cost prohibitive. I get it. People have pets. You know, I'm trying to get more dog parks in the city. I want to make sure they remain clean. 5 cents isn't prohibitive to pay for that thicker bag that you could reuse for pet cleanup, for diapers, for your little, waste basket in your bathroom that we all use to line those with. The other thing it does is it encourages businesses to give a 5-cent refund to every customer that brings a reusable bag. Many do this. Roach Brothers, every one of my at-large colleagues and those that have run at large have spent countless hours at Roach Brothers. For more, not quite when I was working there back in the 90s, but shortly after, they've been giving that 5-cent refund. So we're working to encourage businesses to do that as well. So I would argue that the cost can be offset and there can be made beneficial for a consumer to bring a reusable bag. The other thing the advocates will say is that this is going to hurt small businesses. Well, that's not quite the case because for the first time ever, we're allowing for a mechanism where with these thicker bags or these compostable bags, a business won't have to pay for that out of pocket. If someone does indeed want to purchase one for 5 cents, the money goes back to the retailer. And I think that's a crucial point. One of my good colleagues from the industry on this, who doesn't see eye to eye, suggested that people are going to do all their shopping online. Well, that's just ridiculous. You're not going to pay $5 or $15 for shipping and handling fee to offset this very small and reasonable surcharge, which again, we are encouraging the businesses to give a rebate as well. This ordinance not only helps Boston do our part in preserving the environment, but benefits the taxpayer as well. As I mentioned, a reduction in plastic bag litter is a reduction in the city's costs for litter collection and recycling. I urge you all, and I know we've talked about this and you've all played active roles in our working group. I'm hopeful that we can have a hearing in short order, but I really think we have an opportunity here to do something that's absolutely meaningful, absolutely impactful, helps the environment, helps small businesses, and offers an incentive by encouraging the two consumers for that 5-cent refund when you bring a reusable bag. It is the right thing to do, and it is high time that Boston passed this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Chair recognizes Councilor Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I rise mostly to thank the process over the last 90-plus days. I maintain that this is one of the best researched ordinances and most prepared for ordinances to come before the body. And it's thanks to all the work that he and his team have put in. I do want to acknowledge a few points about this and start with the recognition that this is hard, that anytime we are talking about adding costs to a family's budget, it is something we have to do absolutely thoughtfully and deliberately. That all of us who represent constituents know what families are going through and how hard it is to make paycheck to paycheck ends meet and everything to balance at the end of the day. And so the ordinance was really written to try to encourage our society and our city to shift behavior in a way that was still protective of small businesses, that's fair for small businesses, but also respectful of the pressures, the financial pressures that families are facing. It's also hard, I think, to be focusing on an ordinance that can seem small in the scheme of things. I agree with Councilor O'Malley 1,000% that this is going to be impactful, that this is the right thing to do, and this will have real benefit for Boston. But as we are talking about rising housing costs, as we're talking about public safety and many other issues, the question of why this, why now, we have to take one big step back and realize that every little thing we can do to help the environment and to make our economy greener directly feeds into better job opportunities, a better future, as we're talking about the consequences of sea level rise, of environmental change that will harm our pocketbooks, that will harm our property values in the not too distant future. The other point I want to make clear about this is that it's not a tax it's not an example of government reaching into the pockets of businesses and taking money for ourselves. The 5 cents that Councilor O'Malley has very thoughtfully balanced is a charge that businesses will list on the receipts to make clear to customers that there is a cost associated with every bag that they are asking for. But that 5 cents is kept by the businesses. And the goal is that we recognize that by requiring them to offer thicker bags, that customers will be able to use over and over again and not just one time before it rips and then gets thrown in the street. That it's more expensive for them to buy those thicker bags. And so the 5 cents is meant to offset the business's costs in helping customers make that decision. And the final point I want to make is that, I think it's been evident already in how this process has been run that we are talking about not just words on a page that's going to go into the code and be enforced, but a whole set of partnerships and relationships that will help change behavior in the long run. So this ordinance will continue to be accompanied by partnerships with businesses who want to provide free, tote bags or reusable bags for people. And our expectation and our hope is that many businesses will step up to sponsor these efforts so that we're not just asking people to find a bag somewhere or pay 5 cents at the store, but that they can go to the store and for the first X number of months, there will be many opportunities to get a free bag from that store with certain logos or advertising on it. And so there's benefit for many, many parts of the industry and many, many parts of the community all around. So we will have a thorough public hearing process and look forward to much more feedback on the specifics now that they're put together. But again, I encourage everyone to really think of from the lens of, can we take every single possible little step to help the environment, and especially in this political climate, exercise our city's leadership, and can we make sure that we are including everyone in the conversation? So thank you again, Councilor Mallon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Is there anyone who would like to sign on? Seeing no takers, Madam Clerk, will you please put docket 1529 into government office?
And on to personnel orders, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1530, Councilor Wu for Councilor Zachem.
Councilor Zachem moves for suspension and passage of docket 1530. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1530 has been passed.
Docket number 1531, Councilor Wu for Councilor Zachem.
Councilor Zachem moves for suspension and passage of docket 1531. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1531 has been passed.
Docket number 1532, Councilor Wu for Councilor LaMattina.
Councilor LaMattina moves for suspension and passage of docket 1532. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1532 has been passed.
Docket number 1533, Councilor Wu for Councilor LaMattina.
Councilor LaMattina moves for suspension and passage of docket 1533. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1533 has been passed.
Docket number 1534, Councilor Wu for Councilor O'Malley.
Councilor O'Malley moves for suspension and passage of docket 1534. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1534 has been passed.
And Councilor Wu for Councilor O'Malley.
Councilor O'Malley moves for suspension and passage of docket 1535. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1535 has been passed.
Docket number 1536, Councilor Wu for Councilor Sabi George.
Councilor Sabi George moves for suspension and passage of docket 1536. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1536 has been passed.
Docket number 1537, Councilor Wu for Councilor Sabi George.
Councilor Sabi George moves for suspension and passage of docket 1537. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1537 has been passed. And I'm informed by the clerk that we have 8 late filed matters, 7 of which are personnel in nature, which in the absence of objection will be added to today's agenda. Seeing none, the matters are added. Madam Clerk, would you please read the first late file?
Councilor Wu for Councilor Jackson.
Councilor Jackson moves for suspension and passage of the first late file. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The first late filed matter has been passed.
Councilor Wu for Councilor Jackson.
Councilor Jackson moves for suspension and passage of the second late filed matter. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Second late file has been passed.
Councilor Wu for Councilor Jackson.
Councilor Jackson moves for suspension and passage of the third late filed matter. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The third late filed matter has been passed.
Councilor Michelle Wu ordered that effective Saturday, December 3rd.
Chair moves for suspension and passage of the fourth late filed matter. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The fourth late filed matter has been passed.
Sorry. Councilor Wu ordered that effective Saturday,
Chair
December
moves for
10th.
suspension and passage of the fifth late filed matter. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The fifth late filed matter has been passed.
Councilor Michelle Wu for Councilor Presley.
Councilor Presley moves for suspension and passage of the sixth late filed matter. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The sixth late filed matter has been passed.
Councilor Wu for Councilor Presley.
And Councilor Presley moves for suspension and passage of the seventh late filed matter. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The seventh late filed matter has been passed. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the last late file, which is a letter from Councilor Campbell? Or the eighth, apologies.
Councilor Andrea J. Campbell, Boston City Council, District 4, November 30th, 2016. Dear colleagues, I am unfortunately unable to attend today's council meeting due to an unexpected illness. I look forward to rejoining discussion and taking next steps with you on all upon my return to office. On sincerely, Andrea J. Campbell.
The eighth late filed matter will be placed on file. Moving on to the green sheets. Would any colleagues like to pull a matter from the green sheets? The same one or? Okay. Councilor Baker, Mr. Vice President, would you do a quick switch so I could pull one?
Chair recognizes Councilor Wu.
Apologies, I would like to pull docket number 1304 from the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events, and then I will promptly hand it over to the two sponsors. This is the resolution to establish a state-authorized cultural district in Roxbury. Madam Clerk, would you please read it in?
Thank you, Madam President.
This is page 1 of 11.
Yes. Page 1 of 11, in the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events, docket number 1304, sponsored by Councilor Jackson, resolution to establish a state-authorized cultural district in Roxbury. It was referred to committee on September 28th, 2016. A hearing was held on October 25th, and it is currently in committee.
So given the plan had been to complete the walkthrough first and then have the council vote on it, but given the way the deadlines with the state lined up, they need to submit their application this week, and so there's a little urgency. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilor Jackson.
And actually get to speak today for and with my colleague, Councilor Presley. She is a little bit sick today, but we have the same heart for this issue. Roxbury for decades has been the center of arts and culture, in particular for the African American community in the city of Boston. And very proud today to move forward after an amazing hearing. I actually, out of all of the hearings that I've been to at the council, this is one of the most moving hearings that I have been involved in. And in fact, it was at the historic Hibernian Hall and was even well lit. And I think the most important thing is that we should be commemorating what happens in our neighborhoods and communities, and that art is not simply a cultural component, but it is also part of our business community. And each artist is a small business in and of themselves. And it is absolutely critical that we do everything at the local level as well as state level to promote what is art and culture and the life and times of the people who've lived in these neighborhoods and these communities. So I am so happy to join with Councilor Presley to advance this forward. We will be asking for a vote today, and this will be going to the state board, the Mass Cultural Council, and really look forward to a time where we have the actual designation. And I know that there will be some parties associated with it, and we get to celebrate the great things that have been happening in Roxbury, actually even prior to Boston existing. It is a historic village and has so much talent. And that talent is also shown in the resilience of the people in Roxbury. And so I'm really happy today to put this forward, and I look forward to approval and for it to be able to move on to the Mass Cultural Council and for approval at that level. Thank you so much, Madam President. And I want to thank you for holding such a robust hearing and such a deep hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Presley, would you like to whisper anything additional? Or?
I wish I could.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor Jackson moves, apologies, we need to do two steps here because it's on the green sheets. The first is to poll the Arts and Culture Committee to put it before the council and then to take the vote. Madam Clerk, would you please poll the committee?
Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events. Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Councilor Campbell, absent. Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor McCarthy. Councilor McCarthy, yes. And Councilor O'Malley. Last but not least, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, docket 1304 properly before the council. All in favor of passage, say aye. Any opposed say nay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for docket 1304?
Thank you. Counselor Baker. Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Campbell. Whoops. Counselor Siomo. Counselor Siomo, yes. Counselor Asabi George. Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Jackson. Counselor Jackson, yes. Counselor LaMattina. Counselor LaMattina, yes. Counselor Linehan. Counselor Linehan, yes. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor O'Malley. Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Presley. Just tap that mic. Counselor Presley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. And Counselor Zachem. Counselor Zachem. Madam President, we have a unanimous vote for docket number 1304.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1304 has been passed unanimously with a 12-0 vote. Finally, there are 4 late filed matters for the consent agenda, which in the absence of objection will be added. Hearing none, Chair moves adoption of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The consent agenda is adopted. And would anyone like to make any statements? Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise just to inform my colleagues that going forward and before the end of the session, I will be pulling docket 0157, which is the 2% alcohol tax for addiction and substance abuse services, 2 weeks from today on the 14th of December. And I just want to make sure that that was public and of record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Several years ago, Councilor LaMattina and I started the Clean Boston Task Force, which was a tremendous effort. We worked with so many local businesses and residents about dealing with cleanliness, particularly in our main streets districts and our business districts. One of the ideas that came from that was something called the sidewalk butler, which is used in many other cities. They're receptacles for used cigarette butts, which are among the most prevalent sources of litter in our main streets. Not only does it collect them in a safe, airtight container so it wouldn't cause a fire, but it then recycles them. You can actually recycle cigarette butts, which I didn't know before this meeting. Anyway, businesses in Jamaica Plain put out a call to their members, the Jamaica Plain Business and Professional Association, and we're able to raise enough money to buy 50 of the cigarette butlers. We installed the first 33 yesterday, and this is just something that came out of some great work with Councilor LaMattina. I'm hoping we can expand it. I'm hoping we can really expand to every neighborhood business district and Main Streets district because it's just another way that we can provide a good environmental initiative at zero cost to the taxpayer. These were all paid for by local businesses. Obviously deals with litter and also deals with recycling. So thank you, Councilor LaMattina, for your partnership in that group, and look forward to expanding that to every neighborhood in Boston. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Unanimous consent to make a statement.
You have it.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I just wanted to thank Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Presley, as well as my staff and the over 450 volunteers who came together to do our 6th annual turkey giveaway. This year, Madam President, we were able to give out 3,250 turkeys, and it was over 46 tons of food that was given out. Over 46,000 pounds and 23 tons of food that was given out to our community. It was a wonderful event. I want to thank our sponsors, but it also really makes us think about the need that's out there. We started 6 years ago giving out 300, and now we're tenfold over 3,000. And so this issue of food insecurity and the fact that many folks who wear suits and ties every day come up a little bit short at the end of the month. And so it just really urges us to continue to push forward and to continue to help people in our city. Really happy to be able to do it. My back still hurts, but a little lower back pain means nothing when it comes to the opportunity to help our neighbors, our friends, and those folks in need. So I want to thank the folks who came out, and in particular the sponsors who actually gave so we could have another successful turkey giveaway. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Seeing no other lights, at this time I'd like to ask all councilors and guests to please rise as we prepare to adjourn today's meeting in memory of the following individuals. For Counselor Siomo, Joseph M. Hanlon and Joseph H. Hogan. For Counselors Asabi George, Flaherty, and Linehan, Brian R. Mahoney. For Counselors Asabi George and O'Malley, Florence Henderson. For Counselor LaMattina, Charles J. Welch. For Counselor McCarthy, Judy Leon and Roger J. McCann. For Counselor Linehan and the Chair, Jun Ting Chen. And for Counselor O'Malley, Annalisa R. Smith Perez. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Chair moves that when the council adjourns today, we do so in memory of the aforementioned individuals, and we are scheduled to meet again Wednesday, December 7th at 12 noon. All in favor of adjournment say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Council is adjourned.